The twin suns of New Texora hung low in the orange sky, washing the endless plains in golden light. Wind swept softly across the land, carrying the scent of dry grass and humming power lines from the hover trails. It was the kind of evening that made the air shimmer and the horizon blur like a painting. On that quiet trail, a small hover wagon rolled to a slow stop. Inside the wagon sat a thin young girl with brown hair tied in a loose braid. Her name was Lyra. She held a small, smooth crystal in her hands, a clear blue piece of data technology left to her by her late father. She didn't fully understand what was inside it, but she kept it close to her chest every day. It was the last thing she had of him. Lyra's stepmother turned around in the driver's seat. She wore fine desert clothes and a sharp look in her eyes. "This is where you get off," the woman said coldly. Lyra blinked in confusion. "But this isn't town," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but her heart was starting to race. "This is where you get off," the woman repeated, firmer now. She opened the wagon door and pointed to the dusty ground outside. "You're old enough to take care of yourself." "I've done enough." Lyra stepped out slowly. Her boots touched the trail, stirring up a small cloud of red dust. She clutched the crystal even tighter, trying to keep her face steady. The woman didn't look at her again. She closed the door with a metallic click and started the engine. The hover wagon rose gently above the ground, then sped away down the trail, leaving only a fading line of dust and a soft mechanical hum in the air. For a long moment, Lyra stood there alone. The sound of the wagon faded until the only thing she could hear was the wind moving through the tall, dry grass. She turned slowly in a circle. To her left, nothing but open plains. To her right, the same. Far ahead, a glowing streak in the sky showed the direction of the next small town, too far to walk before nightfall. She wrapped her arms around herself and breathed slowly, willing herself not to cry. "Don't cry," she whispered. "You're strong. You can make it." Lyra was not a stranger to hardship. Since her father had passed away, she had learned to stay quiet, to be small, to survive without being noticed. Her stepmother had never been cruel with words, but she had also never been kind. Lyra was more like a piece of luggage than a child in that woman's eyes. Now, as the sun sank lower, Lyra began walking along the trail. Her boots crunched softly against the packed earth. She remembered the stories her father used to tell. Stories of star ranchers, brave riders who crossed the plains on grav stallions, who built lives with their own hands and hearts. Her favorite story had always been about a man named Cassian Holt. Cassian Holt was a legend on New Texora. People said he owned the largest star ranch on the entire planet, stretching from the Silver Rivers to the Red Dunes. He was known for his kindness as much as his wealth. Travelers spoke of how he helped settlers and saved star beasts lost in the storms. Lyra used to imagine meeting him, though she knew it was just a dream. She walked until the suns dipped below the horizon. The sky turned soft purple and the stars began to shine like tiny silver fires. A cool wind replaced the heat of the day. Lyra shivered, pulling her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders. She found a flat rock near the edge of the trail and sat down carefully. She held the data crystal in both hands and stared at it. The crystal had a faint glow inside, a gentle light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Her father had told her it contained something important, something meant for her when she was ready. She had never had the tools to open it, and now, alone on the trail, she wondered if she ever would. The night grew darker. In the distance, a storm cloud moved slowly across the sky. It wasn't just a weather storm. On New Texora, night storms could be dangerous, with sharp winds and cold that bit like ice. Lyra curled into herself, breathing softly. Just as she began to close her eyes, she heard it. A distant, rhythmic sound. It wasn't the storm. It was something heavier, steadier. Hoofbeats? No, not hoofbeats exactly. Something smoother, like hooves gliding on air. Lyra lifted her head. A faint light appeared on the trail, growing brighter with each passing second. It was a rider. Out of the darkness, a tall figure emerged on a grav stallion, a strong, horse-like creature that floated just above the ground. Its hooves glowed softly blue, leaving a trail of light behind it. The rider wore a long coat that fluttered in the wind, and a wide hat shadowed his face. He stopped a few feet away from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Lyra rose to her feet slowly, clutching the crystal close to her chest. The man dismounted in a single smooth motion. The grav stallion waited patiently, its soft metallic breathing filling the silence. The man pushed his hat back slightly, revealing a weathered but kind face. His eyes were a calm shade of gray, like storm clouds before rain. "What's a young girl doing out here alone?" he asked in a warm, deep voice. Lyra swallowed. I was left here," she said softly. The man's brows knit together. He glanced down the trail in the direction the wagon had gone, then back at her. "Left here?" Lyra nodded. "I'll be fine," she added quickly. She didn't want pity. She had already had enough of that in her short life, but the man didn't look away or turn his back. Instead, he crouched down so he could look at her on her level. "Name?" he asked gently. "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated, like he was memorizing it. "Do you have somewhere to go?" She shook her head. "No, but I can walk to the next town. I'll find something." The man tilted his head slightly. "It's a long way to town. Storm's coming in fast. Even grown men don't walk through a night storm on this trail. It's not safe." Lyra pressed her lips together. She didn't want to admit she was scared, but the truth showed in her trembling hands. The man stood and looked toward the dark sky. Lightning flickered inside the storm cloud, far off but moving closer. He turned back to her with quiet resolve. "My name's Cassian Holt," he said simply. Lyra froze. Cassian Holt, the man from her father's stories, the star rancher everyone admired. He smiled gently at her surprise. "Yes, that one," he said softly, as if he had seen that reaction 1,000 times before. Cassian extended a gloved hand toward her. "Come on, Lyra, you'll catch cold out here. Let's get you to shelter." Lyra stared at his hand. Her stepmother had never offered a hand like that. No one ever had. She hesitated, then slowly placed her small hand in his. His grip was firm but warm. He helped her climb onto the grav stallion. The saddle was wide and padded, and the creature's back vibrated softly as it hovered above the trail. Cassian climbed up behind her and adjusted the reins. The grav stallion began to move smoothly through the night, gliding like a whisper over the ground. Lyra felt the wind rush past her face. The stars above seemed to follow them as they moved. For the first time since her father's passing, she didn't feel completely alone. Cassian didn't ask too many questions. He only said, "You're safe now. We'll talk when the storm's gone." Lyra nodded silently. She didn't have the words yet, but she felt something inside her chest she hadn't felt in a long time. A tiny spark of hope. As they rode across the glowing trail, the storm began to rumble behind them. Lyra looked over her shoulder one last time at the empty road where she had been abandoned. She thought about her stepmother's cold eyes, the sound of the wagon leaving and the feeling of being left behind. Then she turned her gaze forward. The lights of Cassian's Star Ranch glimmered faintly on the horizon like a warm beacon in the night. Cassian guided the stallion forward, strong and steady. The storm was closing in, but they would reach shelter soon. Lyra didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know why Cassian Holt had found her on that lonely trail, but for the first time she allowed herself to believe that her story might not end in sadness. The ranch grew closer. She could see the outlines of wide metal gates, tall silos, and glowing lanterns swinging gently in the night breeze. Somewhere inside, machines hummed softly, and mechanical cattle let out low, steady calls. Cassian slowed the grav stallion as they approached the entrance. He looked down at the small girl in front of him and saw strength beneath the fear. "You'll be all right, Lyra," he said gently. "We'll figure this out." Lyra didn't answer, but she nodded slowly. For the first time in a long while, someone had said we instead of you. That single word made her heart feel a little less heavy. The storm wind howled behind them, but they had already crossed into the safe glow of the ranch lights. Cassian dismounted and helped Lyra down. She stood at the gate, clutching her father's crystal, and looked up at the wide buildings that stretched across the land. This place felt different. Safe. Strong. Alive. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "This is the beginning." Cassian placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Come on, kid," he said softly. "Let's get you warm." Together they walked toward the main ranch house. The door opened with a soft creak, letting out a warm golden light. As Lyra stepped inside, she didn't know how much her life was about to change. But for now, she knew one thing. She was no longer alone on that cold trail. The morning light touched the plains of New Texora like soft gold. The storm had passed in the night, leaving the air fresh and calm. The sun was just rising over the distant silver hills when Lyra opened her eyes. She lay in a small but warm room with cream-colored walls and a large window. The curtains danced gently in the breeze. A soft blanket was wrapped around her, and for a few moments she forgot where she was. Then she remembered Cassian Holt, the tall man with kind eyes who had brought her from the trail to his ranch. She sat up quickly, clutching her father's crystal close to her chest. Someone knocked softly on the door. "Morning, Lyra," came Cassian's steady voice. She hesitated, then answered, "Good morning." The door opened, and Cassian stepped in, still wearing his wide hat and long coat. He carried a tray with a cup of warm tea and a plate of fresh bread. "Breakfast," he said simply, setting the tray down on a small table by her bed. Lyra stared at it for a moment. She wasn't used to someone bringing her food. She whispered, "Thank you." Cassian sat down on the chair near the bed. "You sleep all right?" She nodded. "Yes, it's quiet here." "Good," Cassian said with a small smile. "This is a working ranch. Quiet in the morning. Busy in the day." Lyra sipped her tea slowly. It was sweet and warm, and it settled her nerves. Cassian didn't ask her about the trail, or why she had been left there. He just let her eat in peace. When she was done, he said, "I want to show you something." "If you feel strong enough," she nodded eagerly. She wanted to see more of this place, the place that had felt safe for the first time in a long while. Cassian led her outside. The ranch was even bigger than she had imagined. Wide fields stretched to the horizon. Shiny metal fences glowed in the sunlight, and long stable buildings held grav stallions and gentle star beasts with glowing horns. The air smelled of grass, machines, and warm earth. Workers moved about, men and women in light work suits guiding animals, checking equipment, talking softly. They greeted Cassian with friendly nods. He greeted each of them by name. "This ranch isn't just mine," Cassian said as they walked. "It belongs to everyone who works here. We take care of each other. We build it together." Lyra listened carefully. She liked how he said we instead of I. Cassian guided her toward a high porch overlooking the fields. From here she could see everything: the barns, the shining water towers, the smooth trail leading to the nearest star town and far beyond, the faint shimmer of the old terraforming towers her father used to talk about. "This land was empty once," Cassian said quietly. "Then people came with nothing but a dream." "Your father was one of those people." Lyra turned to him in surprise. "You knew my father?" Cassian nodded slowly. "Yes. He helped build some of the water lines out here. He was a smart man. Kind too." Lyra looked down at the crystal in her hand. "He gave this to me," she said softly, "but I never knew what it really was." Cassian's eyes rested on the glowing blue crystal. "I might be able to help with that," he said gently, "but only if you want to know." Lyra hesitated. Part of her was afraid, but another part, the stronger part, wanted to understand her father's secret. She nodded slowly. "I want to know." Cassian led her to a small room inside the main ranch house. It was full of old star maps, glowing screens, and toolboxes. He placed the crystal on a scanner and tapped a few buttons. A soft blue light filled the room. On the screen, a map of New Texora appeared. In the center of the map was a blinking golden point deep in the outer plains. Words appeared beneath it. "Terraforming vault, access key confirmed." Lyra stared at it. "A vault?" Cassian leaned closer. "This is something big, Lyra. A terraforming vault holds water programs, seeds, tools, everything needed to grow a new world. If your father left this to you, it means he trusted you with something precious." Her heart beat fast. "But why me?" Cassian smiled softly. "Because he believed in you." Before Lyra could speak again, the scanner made a soft chime. Cassian's expression grew thoughtful. "There's more," he said. "A message." The screen shifted to show a recording, a clear, gentle voice she hadn't heard in so long. Her father's voice, Lyra, the recording said. "If you're hearing this, it means you've grown strong. This vault is meant to protect the people of New Texora. I couldn't finish what I started, but maybe you can. Find someone you trust. Don't be afraid. You are braver than you know." Lyra covered her mouth with her hands as tears filled her eyes, not of pain but of something deeper. A warm, quiet strength. Cassian didn't speak. He simply let her listen until the message ended. She wiped her eyes gently. "I want to finish what he started," she whispered. Cassian nodded with quiet respect. "Then we'll help you." The days that followed were unlike anything Lyra had ever known. She learned how the ranch worked, how the grav stallions were cared for, and how the fields were planted. She followed Cassian around, asking questions, listening carefully. The workers liked her. They saw how hard she tried and how bright her spirit was. She wasn't just a guest anymore. She was part of the place. At night, Cassian taught her how to read maps and understand old colony codes. The vault's location was far from the ranch, near a stretch of land where few people dared to go because of sudden sandstorms and strange old machines buried in the ground. But Cassian had faced challenges before. With his team and careful planning, they prepared to travel out and find the vault. Lyra didn't want to be left behind. "I can help," she told him. Cassian looked at her seriously. "It won't be easy," he said. "It'll be a long ride and the weather can change fast." She lifted her chin, courage steady in her young face. "I'm not afraid." Cassian studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, then you ride with me." The day they set out, the sky was a perfect clear blue. The team packed light supplies, scanners, and mapping tools. Lyra rode with Cassian on the same grav stallion as the night they met. The wind rushed through her hair, and the land stretched endlessly ahead. As they traveled, Cassian told her stories about her father, how he used to work with the settlers, how he once fixed a broken water line that saved an entire harvest. Lyra listened with wide eyes. She had never known these things. Each story made her heart feel both heavier and stronger. After hours of travel, they reached the outer plains. There, half buried under sand and time, stood the vault doors, tall, smooth, and shining faintly under the sun. A symbol glowed at the center, the same blue color as her crystal. Cassian looked down at her. "It's yours," he said softly. Lyra's hand shook as she placed the crystal into the small round slot on the door. The light grew brighter, spreading across the metal like flowing water. A soft hum filled the air, and slowly the massive door began to open. Inside, rows of preserved seeds, water programs, and environmental tools rested, untouched for years. It was everything her father had promised, hope stored away for the future of New Texora. Cassian placed a hand on her shoulder. "This is what your father dreamed of," he said quietly. "And now you've made it real." Lyra smiled through quiet tears. She wasn't just the girl who had been left on the trail anymore. She was the one who carried her father's legacy. In the weeks that followed, Cassian and his team used the vault's resources to strengthen the ranch and help the nearby settlements. Clean water flowed more freely. New crops grew across the plains. People spoke of Lyra with admiration, the brave young girl who held the key to a brighter tomorrow. One evening, Cassian called her to the porch. The sky was painted in soft pink and gold as the suns began to set. "You've done something incredible," Cassian said gently. "Your father would be proud." Lyra looked out at the fields. Workers were laughing together. Children ran near the fences. It felt like a world full of life and promise. Cassian continued, "I've been thinking. You've got a home here now, if you'd like. I can make it official. I can adopt you, Lyra, only if it's what you want." Lyra's breath caught. She turned to look at him. His gray eyes were steady and kind, just as they had been the night he found her. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled softly, a smile full of light and trust. "I'd like that," she whispered. Cassian nodded once. "Then welcome home, officially." That night, the ranch celebrated with soft lights strung across the yard. Music played gently in the air, and laughter echoed under the stars. Lyra wore a new wide-brimmed hat, a gift from Cassian. She stood on the porch and looked up at the sky. Once she had stood alone on a cold trail with nothing but fear. Now she had a family, a home, and a future she could help build. The stars above seemed closer than ever, shining like a promise. Cassian stepped beside her, resting his hand gently on her shoulder. "The trail may be long, Lyra," he said softly, "but sometimes it leads you exactly where you need to be." Lyra nodded. "I believe that now." Together they watched the lights of their ranch, shine against the night. And in that warm glow, the orphan girl became something more, a part of a legacy, a symbol of hope and the heart of a new beginning.